In this episode of the Title Answers podcast, I am going to cover why you need an attorney in a real estate transaction. Let's think of a real estate transaction as a football game. In a football game, you're going to have many different people involved, right? You as a client, or let's say you're the quarterback. You get to make a lot of decisions on the field, and ultimately you get the glory of the game. But you're going to depend on other individuals in the transaction. So let's call these your coaches, right? Your realtor, he's your offensive coach. You have your lender, that's your defensive coach. Your head coach, that could be your attorney, right? So if you think about it, you depend on all these different individuals. When it comes to a real estate transaction, I absolutely believe that clients should have an attorney on their side. And that's not just because I am one, but for the following reasons that I'm going to give to you. The first reason why I think you should have an attorney in your corner when you're engaging in real estate transactions, an attorney can give you the muscle, right? When you go out there and you're in a transaction, there's going to come a point in the negotiation where maybe you're going to have to take a hardline stance, or maybe someone is doing something they shouldn't. If you have an attorney in your corner throughout the transaction, you get to, at that moment in the transaction, say, my lawyer is taking over. And that's where usually I step in and say, you can't do that, or you need to do this, or these are the legal ramifications of your actions. As I've told you guys in other episodes, sometimes people say, oh, you'll hear from my lawyer, and they don't want to pay. Well, when you have a lawyer in your corner, and by the way, most of the time, we don't cost that much more than any other title agent. When you have a lawyer in your corner, you have the ability to have me immediately step in, address the issue, and resolve it for you. Now, if you're not dealing with an attorney in a transaction, let's say you're using a title agent that doesn't have an attorney on board. When they reach an issue, for example, there's a lien on the property and someone needs to call the county or the municipality and tell them, listen, this issue has been resolved, or this should have already been, a release of lien should have been filed. When it comes from an attorney, they know that if they don't provide what is supposed to be provided pursuant to the municipal code, I am going to file a quiet title action, and I am going to show them through that quiet title action that they didn't take certain steps, and I'm going to have a judge sign off on a final judgment resolving the issue, and they're going to have to pay my client's fees. They're not going to want to go through this, and they know the client has already engaged counsel, and they know, you know what, this guy's ready to resolve the issue, or he's going to, quote unquote, fight us, right? So when you have the attorney in your corner, you have the muscles to actually get into that fight. The second reason you should have an attorney in your corner in a real estate transaction as opposed to anyone else's, attorneys make a career out of being an attorney. I myself have been practicing law now it's right now 2018. I've been practicing law this is my 10-year anniversary. And before that, I was in the real estate game since like about 2004 through my family's investments. So I've been around for quite some time, and I plan on doing real estate until that day comes where everything ends. But what ends up happening is, and today's economy is a perfect example, times are really good. Everyone sees money in real estate. Everyone wants to become a title agent. Well, you know what? Think about it. The barrier to entry for me to be an attorney is I have to go to 3 years of law school. I have to pass the Florida bar. All right. And then I have to get a lot of experience to go out there because I'm held to a higher standard of ethics. I have a lot of accountability and liability. And if I do anything wrong in a transaction, I lose my license and I lose my ability to earn. You know what the majority of these people that go out there and they open these, I basically like to call them chop shops for title, is the second something goes wrong, they get rid of that processor or they get rid of that person, they close it up, they go and open another company under another name, and they're right back to business. They don't care. Or they leave the industry altogether. So when you have someone in your corner that makes a career out of this, they're going to always objectively look at this situation, give you the best advice, adhere to the code of ethics and tell you this is what you should do and give you the right advice, as opposed to someone who claims to be out there representing you, but really they're just trying to make a buck off of you. And what ends up happening is they're not giving you advice that benefits you. They're giving you advice that benefits them so they can make some money off of you. The third reason why you should have a real estate attorney on your side when you're buying and selling real estate is the experience. Now, I understand that many individuals out there can have experience, but when it comes to a real estate transaction, most attorneys are, if they're a real estate attorney such as myself, they're not only going to have the transactional experience of going out there and buying and selling real estate, they're also going to have litigation experience, which means they've probably gone out there and they've seen a case where the situation has turned sour and the parties have sued each other, and either they've represented that individual or they've been actively representing the client while somebody else litigates it, and they understand all the legal ramifications of how a situation plays out. Now, why is this important? Because as a real estate attorney who's handling 30 transactions a month, I'm watching 30 live situations where all sorts of problems are coming up. I'm also watching situations where parties have, the situation has gone south, and unfortunately, every so often, somebody ends up in litigation and they sue each other. I know what the costs of that litigation are. I know what all the pros and cons are, and I can advise parties. I can tell you many times when a transaction gets a little feisty, someone will say, well, I'm going to sue you. And typically, if it's my client, they say, no, I want to sue them. I'll say, do you really understand that in order to sue them, we're going to have to now draft a complaint. We're going to have to put everything together. That's going to be approximately $4,000 or $5,000 in fees. Then they have time to respond. That entire process takes a year. All right. And then at the end of it, you may not even want this house anymore. Do you want to spend all that time, money, and aggravation over this one little issue? Or do we want to figure out how to resolve it? A lot of that comes with experience. But when you're dealing with someone who's not as experienced and doesn't have that wealth of knowledge to draw on, guess what ends up happening? A situation happens, they don't know how to advise you, and everybody gets flustered, and you end up in this limbo, and there's no resolution to the issue. That experience is extremely valuable, and that's why I think having a real estate attorney in your corner when you're buying and selling real estate is extremely important.